Hey, what's up guys? My name is Cameron Gallagher and today we're going to be talking about the Aputure 300d, so let's check it out. So Aputure has been one of the biggest companies in the lighting game for a very long time. Now originally I had bought the Aputure 120t, which was a really great light, but of course it was tungsten balanced. The 120d hadn't come out yet, which, you know, it's great for most cases, but in reality one of the biggest issues that I kept coming up against was shots like this, your typical talking head interview shot, and the reality is that I couldn't light someone without gelling it. And then of course for most interview situations you want to have pleasant, soft lighting. So in order to create enough light to not blow out the background like we are right now, the issue was coming up that I was having to gel my light to daylight, which of course cuts down quite a bit of light, probably one, maybe even 1.5 stops of light. And then of course softening your light is going to even cut it down even more. So at the end of the day, my 120t could not fight the sun when it came to interviews like we're doing right now. So I saw the Aputure 300d and I knew that that was definitely the light for me. Now Aputure did not send me this light, I bought this light with my own money, but I kind of want to talk to you guys about some of the things I liked about it, how it looks, and some of the things that I don't like about it. So first off, generally speaking, I love the light. It's insanely bright. Now this is Aputure's 300 watt or around 300 watt daylight balanced light. So this light is about $1,000, and when you do order it, it comes in a nice carry-on case. I really do like the fact that it comes with its own case. Everything fits in there nicely. So along with the Aputure 300d, I also got the Glow Pop 38-inch softbox. Now I do have a grid coming for this, but unfortunately it was back ordered. So that should be coming soon, and I'll probably talk about how grids work with lighting, but for right now it's just a 38-inch softbox. So I've been incredibly happy with this combo so far. I've taken it on some tests, just some talking head tests like I'm doing right now, and of course some other interview style tests. So we actually used both lights, the Aputure 300d and the Aputure 120t, for a recent music video shoot. Now I'm going to be doing an in-depth behind the scenes on this music video shoot, but I am just blown away by the quality that I got from the Aputure 300d and the Glow Pop softbox, keying the entire thing. We used it for the entire music video shoot, and we did use the Aputure 120t as our kind of backlight that turned into our sort of flare light. So I was incredibly happy with how this thing performed on set. It was easy to work with. We had it running for probably about 6 hours straight and there was no issues, no overheating. The thing was cool the minute I unplugged it, basically. It's so nice having a daylight balanced light that I can bring around and I don't have to worry about changing the color temperature or not being bright enough to match the brighter outside background. So to give you an example of how bright this thing is, I wanted to light this scene as I would a normal talking head. Now I prefer a little more contrast than most people. Generally you'd have some type of fill light or maybe a bounce or something right here. But in this case I don't, so it's totally fine. So to give you an example, right now I have the Aputure 300d right here, which is just out of frame. It's probably about 3.5 to 4 feet away, or if it's metric, about 1 meter or so away. And as you can see, this is giving me enough light to actually balance out the background. Now you can see out the window that it's not just completely white and overexposed. It is actually enough light in order to make sure that it's still, you know, looking decent. And that's one of the biggest things us filmmakers struggle with is, of course, you have to have enough light to balance the other light. Now this Glow Pop softbox is actually really cool. It sets up fairly easy, although it's a little bit confusing at first, and I wish they had a little bit better instructions, really any instructions, but once you figure it out, it's very simple to use. So the nice thing is that the Aputure 300d has a Bowens S mount, which is a very common photography mount for strobes or things like that. So the nice thing is most accessories that you could buy, I mean, you could buy really cheap softboxes or accessories or really expensive ones, but they're all gonna fit because it's a kind of unproprietary mount. So that's one thing I really do give Aputure a lot of credit for, because they of course have their own Aputure dome, the light dome, but that's very big, and for me, I just don't think it would work in most spots, where the Glow Pop's a little more compact, and I think it's a little bit easier to travel and set up. So that's the reason why I got the Glow Pop. But again, if it didn't have that, you wouldn't be able to easily interchange those. So I'm shooting this with my Panasonic GH5, and I'm at ISO 400 shooting in Vlog and at f1.4 at 180 degree shutter angle. Now I am using a little bit of ND on here. I don't know exactly what it is right now, but I'll put it on the screen somewhere. And you can kind of see that this thing lights very well. And of course in the correction I can pull back a little bit and hopefully get a little more of those highlights back. But you can see that this is a very nice interview setup. So I actually used one boom mic stand in order to create the rest of this lighting. What I did was actually set up the boom arm to have a Quasar Science Q LED light above the back of my head. That's kind of giving me a little bit of hair light right here. Now typically I'd do something a lot stronger, but of course in this case I just wanted to do something kind of small and show you an easy setup. And then I do have just a piece of typical foam core here, giving me just a little bit more fill. And you can kind of see with and without that, the difference that makes. Now it just goes to show you that a very simple piece of foam core that I literally got for like $2 at I think the dollar store or something like that can make a huge difference in your interview setup. So there is kind of a couple cons with this light. Now granted, these are not cons that would make me not want to purchase a light or not recommend it by any means, but it's things to definitely keep in mind. Obviously the first is it is $1,000. Now that's a pro and a con, depending on how you look at it. For younger filmmakers who maybe don't do this professionally, that is a con, because of course it is an expensive light. It's something that you do have to invest in. Obviously for professionals like myself and people who use this on a daily basis to make money, this is incredibly cheap. So that is both a pro and a con. It kind of depends on how you look at it. Now the cool thing about this is it is battery powered, but one of the cons is the batteries are incredibly expensive, and honestly I would probably just recommend renting them if you need them for a specific job. And this kind of leads me to my next and probably the biggest con, is that there is a lot of cables going on and a lot of modules that you have to plug this light in. So of course, most large HMIs, things like that, have a ballast and different things you can work off of, but the biggest issue is in order to keep this light cool, they basically separated each piece during the line of production. So of course you have your light, which has its two fans that of course are very silent, I mean almost to the point we can't hear them. But then you have to run a cable from that light to your actual ballast, which is where you actually control the lights on and off and dimness. And then from the ballast, there's another cable that runs to your actual power brick. My biggest issue is the fact that you have to run obviously two cables between these, but that the power brick is actually fairly loud considering how quiet the rest of it is. And the problem for me is that you can't get that power brick very far away. Now I'm gonna see if you can hear the power from my actual mic right now. So I'm gonna figure out later if I can hear that. But it's one of those things where it definitely is audible, and I could see where on set, if you were doing a very close interview, where I mean this thing is fairly close to me right now, it maybe could cause an issue. Now they did leave you a very long cable that is nice to keep it away, but one of the problems is one of the cables only works with in between one of the sections. So honestly, what I'm kind of wrapping up here is that I really think Aputure should try to refigure the ballast and the connections between them, because honestly, the way I look at it is I would rather have a huge ballast that has the power and everything on it. Like I would rather it be really big and really heavy, but be something that can run very far away from the light. Because then for me, I don't care if it's louder because I can put it in another room if I really wanted to. Where unfortunately with this, there's so many moving parts and pieces. If a cable breaks, it's just that many more places something could go wrong or you could lose a cable. That was the other thing too. I did wish they maybe had added another extra cable or two. Like I said, there is an extra cable if you think about it, but it still would be nice to make sure that you have all bases covered. The other slight disadvantage is that it is a different cable for my 120T, meaning that I can't actually swap those cables back and forth. Again, this is nitpicking right now. This is an amazing light, but I'm just kind of make sure that you're aware of all these different things. So honestly, in all, I really can't recommend this light enough. If you are in the market for an ultra powerful LED light that you know is going to be tried and true, is going to work great and look great, the Aputure 300D is honestly probably the best light out there. So if you'd like to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe and check out the link below to get the Aputure 300D. It definitely gives us a little bit of help here at the channel and helps us kind of keep things moving. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys soon.